Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey everyone, it's Jory Rose. Welcome back to this week's episode of Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where I invite my friend and colleague, Natalie Bell, who is going to share with us the importance of practicing self-compassion. We kick off the interview with me delving into Natalie's zone of genius as she begins to tell us how we can bring self-compassion into our lives and why it matters now more than ever during the pandemic. Hope you enjoy the show. Be well.
Thank you so much, Jory, for having me. Zone of genius is a little bit daunting, right, to think, but I do think we can claim our zone of genius. And really, my area of focus and passion and love is this practice of mindful self-compassion, being both mindful and self-compassionate so that we can be an inner ally to ourselves. You know, we can show up in a supportive way even when we've lost ourselves to self-criticism and worry and all of the things that we're going through, that we can keep recentering and shifting to this kind of inward cultivation of care, of strength, of courage, of showing up the way we want to show up. And so I just love these practices that help me to really truly thrive. And even if at times I feel lost to these moments of struggle, I can pick myself back up and come alive again. And this is what it's like daily.
It's so beautiful. And, you know, even as you describe that, it sounds like, oh, I want to have that all the time. And I also know it's not possible to have it all the time. And that's not even the intention, that we can't always live in that space, but to know it's an option to gain the tools or to draw upon those resources to access when we're really needing it. So in order for people to really gain some greater understanding, could you help define some of those things? Because I know what I mean. I know what you mean when you say mindful self-compassion, but maybe not all of the viewers have a clear understanding. So in what ways do you define that in a very kind of practical, attainable approach?
Yeah, because even as we talk about this, you know, it sounds so good, but then we have this illusion that being mindful and self-compassionate means that, oh, I'm just feeling calm and centered all the time. Life is a breeze. I'm always connected and grounded. You know, this is not what being mindful means or being self-compassionate means.
Which is such a great myth to dispel. You know, it's such a beautiful myth to dispel, because I think as people think that's what it means and they're not able to access that, then it's easy to think, I'm not good at this.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. If we're honest, we all want that. We all want the ability to come back to calm, or to come back and feel grounded, to feel connected to ourselves, to feel loving and accepted. But the truth is, our lives as human beings are super messy. We are caught in moments of inner struggle a lot, you know, worry, distraction, restlessness, agitation. We get in arguments with our loved ones, with ourselves. We blame and shame. You know, like this is our daily bread, really. So how do we ride those waves? And I think with mindfulness, we just open up to the moment, like what's happening right now? Oh, I'm noticing that I'm tired and I'm blaming myself for that right now. And so in that moment of seeing clearly, without judging that I'm judging myself, I can see that and go like, wow, you know, right now I'm really struggling and I feel this kind of heavy pressure. So self-compassion in that moment would be to just honor and name that, to validate it. Like, wow, right now I'm really struggling and I'm not the only person who struggles this way. So mindfulness, common humanity, and then offering kindness. Is there something I can do to help myself in that moment, even if the bad feeling's still there, which it might be. Maybe I'm going to still feel tired, even though I practice this, but I'm going to be okay with it. I'm not going to have to fight myself anymore about it, or I'm not going to have to run for the hills or run for the bottle of wine or,
Right.
the distraction of my cell phone just like take me out.
Right.
So that I can still be with these kind of difficult moments with mindfulness, seeing clearly, opening with this open-hearted way of seeing, naming, and then really helping myself like, God, you know what? Yeah, this moment's hard. Maybe I hate being in this moment, but I'm right here. Like I'm cultivating this sense of there's an inner wise being inside of me that can help me, even if there's an inner critic here too.
Sure. Yeah. Can I let it be okay that I don't feel good right now?
That is the hardest part. For most of us, it's like the pinnacle, like how can I accept feeling imperfect? How can I accept that I'm not, here I'm a mindfulness and mindful self-compassion teacher. Every time I show up to teach, I'm supposed to be like, this calm, centered being. Well, I'm not always that way at all.
Yeah.
So how do I also show up without feeling like I have to hide myself? So I can show up and I can be real. And then just know, like, we all are connected by these very, very similar experiences, even if our lives are very different. And for some of us, it is much harder than for others, no doubt.
I always say, it's, you are unique, but your problems are not. And so while what you are experiencing is unique to you, and yet it's also part of common humanity and just part of being human of what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And I often get this question from clients when I define, parts of mindfulness as allowing and accepting whatever is arising in the moment. And I get the pushback of, well, what do I do if I don't like what's arising? Okay, well, not liking it doesn't actually make it go away. That's the key, right? Because not liking it makes it, you have more resistance. It makes you want to, like you said, grab a distraction to make you not feel it. And we realize it doesn't actually go anywhere when we try to resist it. It actually gets bigger often.
Yeah, and I think of these moments when we're not liking how we're feeling or what we're thinking about or what just happened. These are like the perfect moments. I see them as like the orange flags, like these are markers that say like, wow, right now I'm noticing how much I just don't like what's happening right now. Or I don't like right now I'm struggling, or I'm feeling super stressed or anxious, or I'm noticing I'm fearful and I'm not really myself right now. These are like, if you can start to learn to identify those moments and name them for yourself. So naming kind of plants that flag for you. And this is the perfect moment to just try and see it with a little more space. Mindfulness gives us that.
Yeah.
And then to say like, wow, in any moment that I struggle like this, I can name it and create a little more perspective, but also really help myself in these moments. Like, I'm struggling. And whenever I've done enough of this training now that whenever I'm struggling, I know I can land there and then offer some help. Like, hey, I'm right here. Or I know this sucks feeling this way. It's just like, what would I say to a good friend in a moment like that? I know it's just horrible what you're feeling. And it's real. Like, this is not something light, and it's not also something that may easily go away. But if I can befriend these moments with myself, then these moments change. It's like, okay, I can be in the struggle. I can be feeling off, like for me personally, in the last couple of days, I've been feeling this weird equilibrium thing in my body. I'm like, what is that? And I don't feel 100%. And I'm just showing up as much as I can going, I don't know what this is, but hey, I'm right here. And even if things are imperfect, which they are a lot, can I keep coming back as a friend? So can I be a friend? It's a great practice of self-compassion.
It is. One of the things you mentioned makes me think about an example. I worked with a young 11-year-old years ago who had a lot of anxiety. And I'm big into visuals because I see my emotions, and I can visualize. So I think those visuals are what helpful ways to name our experience. And she described her anxiety as being in the middle of a tornado. And it was a powerful visual because I imagined this swirl of helpless energy that she was at the whim of, and in anticipation of, no wonder it was anxious that, that she was feeling that. And my response to her in our work together was, I'm not here to deny the tornado. If that's what's here, that's what's here. And I'm wondering if you can practice, instead of being in the middle of the tornado, do you think you can be the weatherman commentating on the tornado? Can you step outside of it and observe it and be the weatherman commentating? Wow, that's a really big tornado. Look where it's going. And even her 11-year-old mind, she was able to relate to that as a practice. And I've used that example for almost 10 years now. And I think it's a beautiful description of, what does it mean to name it? What does it mean to observe? What does it mean to not deny or resist or ignore what's coming up? How do I befriend what I don't like? Okay, so we're just observing it.
Yeah, it's so powerful, that compassionate naming, or what in mindfulness you call labeling, naming. Yeah, it's like because we unstick ourselves even just a little bit from these really powerful emotions like anxiety, like grief and sadness and shame. Like when these bigger emotions come, we're sometimes swallowed by them. They just feel so all-encompassing. So if we can just name it, like, wow, anxiety. And one thing that's helped me with anxiety too is saying, like, noticing it in your physical body, wherever you notice it, and go, I often say, like, it's not me, it's just my body, or it's just my nervous system reacting. Or there's
what you're describing is able to detach the physical sensation from your identity, right?
Yes. Yeah, and in some way, really breaking these tough experiences into smaller, manageable parts. And remembering, of course, this is the beauty of mindfulness, is it's really remembering our whole beings. Because I am not just any one of my thoughts or worries or anxieties, or I'm not even one of my feelings. They're part of what's happening in my experience right now, but they're not who I am. They're just part of my experience.
Yeah.
Can I keep remembering? I love, one of my big practices is that perspective taking. I love to, as if at the top of a mountain or overlooking the ocean, just seeing, like, what's here in the landscape of your awareness, of your mind. I'm really taking that open perspective.
Yeah, because sometimes we're so far in the middle of it, we can't see it.
Oh, yeah.
We got to step back. It makes me think too, I have a client that when she's gotten very skilled at being able to name the natural patterns that her brain produces versus over identifying with the patterns. And she'll even be able to say to herself, wow, look at how my brain is bringing me back to a place of trauma versus I'm stuck in trauma.
I love it.
It's a really powerful but subtle shift. And right now in the world that we're living in, it's a whole new world. And I think, if you define trauma as a dysregulation to the nervous system, then we are all experiencing some degree of trauma as this pandemic has changed our lives forever. And however which way, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's changed. Like, I think anyone listening right now can automatically assume that change is bad. And that's also a mindset shift. It's just change.
Yeah.
And so, all these emotions, I feel like right now is a really ripe time for people to be practicing these tools of mindfulness and self-compassion.
Yes.
So how do you...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, how can you, speak to people really beginning? Maybe someone who hasn't, those not inclined to this before, but they're recognizing that dysregulation in their nervous system. They're recognizing that emotion as anxiety, or that pit in their stomach, or the restless mind at night keeping them awake.
Yeah. Well, one, I mean, there's so much I could talk about in this, but I mean, one of the beautiful things is we know that these mindfulness and self-compassion are trainable skills. And literally, I've taught thousands of students around the world. I see changes in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of training these practices. Literally, we not only see like a mindset shift. Wow, I can be kind to myself when I struggle. I can notice how I am and help myself in these moments. I can become aware and shift and recenter. I can even let go of something I'm clinging onto by coming back into the present moment. So literally, the beauty of this is that these are trainable skills. We know the science shows that we see a decrease in stress, anxiety, depression, burnout. We see greater life satisfaction and optimism just by practicing with these, aside from even brain change that we see, increases in gray matter in the brain, and parts of the brain that are helpful for like emotion regulation. So the science is helpful, but also just the fact that we know in a few weeks of training, we can begin to feel like we're more resourced. I'm more resilient. Because even as you were talking about COVID, the coronavirus a minute ago, I could just feel the sadness inside of me when you were saying, our world has changed, and maybe it's not a bad thing. It's just like, it has changed, and it is hard. Like I'm not going to BS my way around this, and none of us have to. Which is just to say, like, it really sucks what we're going through. Let's just name it. It's really hard. I can't wait to get together with people in a party or in a group or a concert.
I just want to hug every stranger I walk past.
I know. So, like we don't have to try to say like, I'm going to get through this and I'm going to be better for it. We actually can be better for it, but we can also get there by naming how hard it is and being there for ourselves in the truth of our experience. Let's be real. Let's not pretend, but let's meet. If we meet our difficulties with this kind of attitude, our difficulties shift. It's like we befriend our pain, we befriend the sadness and the grieving. And I think part of the issue is for so long, let's face it, especially here in the Western world, we hate difficult emotions. We push them as hard as we can. We push against them as hard as we can. We run for the hills. But we have to learn now, how do I swim with difficult emotions? Like, how can I befriend them even in a way like, okay, this is real. I notice grief. I notice grief that like, when am I going to see my mom and dad? Yeah. I can't wait to see them, but I can't see them right now. I'm going, how many months longer will it be? I'm not really sure. And, I have to I continue to befriend myself in these moments and then share with friends how hard it is. So this helps me. And I know I'm not alone, but
you are definitely
it's
not alone.
Easy.
And, to add to what you're saying, all of the ways that we've been able to not have to face what's hard, whether they're healthy or some unhealthy defenses, we can't do. We can't go to the gym. We can't go to the yoga class or the dance class. We can't go to the bar with our friends. We can't go for girls' night out or Taco Tuesday. We can't go to the concert. We can't go to the sporting event. We can't escape our house. And so I'm sure I'll say this many times throughout this summit, but I really feel it in my soul that this pandemic that we're in the midst of is really the universe's way of calling upon all of us to say, hey guys, it's time to do things a little bit different now, because a lot of the way we were living wasn't really working. And we know this, on the global level from, climate change, but we also see in our challenges in being present, in our relationships, in our ability of focus, in the increase of stress and anxiety and glorification of busyness. There's so many areas in our lives that weren't actually working all that well. It was a perception
Right.
of safety and security. And I think these tools of mindfulness and self-compassion, to be kind to yourself in the midst of this struggle, in the midst of this newness, is okay, guys. This is what else are we going to do? Because we can't run and
Right.
escape it. It's here.
Right.
'Cause no matter
I
where you
know.
go, it's there.
Yeah, it's like it's given us an opportunity to communicate how we really feel. I think that's
Yeah.
important. To name what, you know, how do I really feel? Like I notice I'm communicating with my family and friends like in more heartfelt ways, trying to express what I really want to express.
Yeah.
My father, who like hardly feels much difficult emotion ever, said, you know, have you noticed that it's kind of depressing? I'm like, oh yeah, you know, but just for us to connect on that level, this is a very humbling experience, but it's also a connecting, it's like it's forcing us to connect with
Yeah.
how we feel deeply. And so as we go there, like kind of places we didn't want to go to before, especially touching these difficult emotions, let's bring as many tools with us. I always like to think of this training, mindfulness and self-compassion training, as we're going to grow our toolkit. You know,
Yeah.
we're going to put it in our bag and we're going to go into the jungle of our lives. And, you know, it's a jungle. But
yes.
we're going to have these tools so that whatever we run into, we can help ourselves with this tool bag, you know?
And I love that visual too, because I think many people can assume that they are just wanting one tool in there and that they just need one thing. And in reality, there's many things that need to be in the tool bag.
Yes.
It's not a one and done.
Yeah, for most of us, it's escape, you know,
Yeah.
or it's like press the easy button, take a pill and get rid of whatever you are experiencing. You know, we want as much as possible just to press a button and it's gone. And I often say too, like learning mindfulness and self-compassion, we're going to realize that we may also learn it to try and get away from those bad feelings, to get away from the truth of our life. But that's not what it really is.
No.
We're going to try to see it more clearly and create more space around it so we can be with it, but be more expansive, be able to hold it without having to fight ourselves or to run away, you know, like that.
Yeah, which is the habit and the pattern for so many people.
Yeah, like so if we think about the toolkit too, right? Like inside that, maybe it was the easy button or the escape button. But instead, we'll have these other tools of compassionate naming, feeling in our body, things like soothing touch, centering breath and reclaiming our center.
Yeah.
Kind attention and kind phrases that we can use. So, yeah.
So for so many people, their inner critic is really loud. And it's really hard to access some kindness. Maybe they were never extended kindness. Maybe they never had experience of feeling the worthiness of receiving kindness. And I know for many people, this is real. And, you know, in the work that I do, I find that self-worth and it becomes a big sticking point that prevents people from being able to be more self-compassionate. And we also know that any sort of grief can reactivate some old grief. And I think trauma can activate old trauma. So I'm looking at, you know, all of these trends that I've noticed just in the work I do as a therapist. And right now, recognizing whether it's a grief that's bringing up an old grief, or again, you know, these traumas bringing up old traumas, but also, you know, kind of carrying along, dragging behind it is, maybe I don't feel worthy of being kind to myself. So how would you speak to someone who doesn't have a really good working model to know that they deserve?
Yes. So this is really common, you know, and it's our biggest edge, which is if I don't feel worthy of kindness, I may not even know how to be kind, right? I was never trained that. I was never given that training. Or if I try to be kind, I might notice all the times I've never been kind, this kind of backdraft or
Yes.
sometimes old memories come up of all the pain we've had before.
Right.
So this is where it helps to work with a teacher, if possible, work with a coach, get resources so that as teachers, we can model what it's like to be kind, what it's like to hear like a supportive voice that you might take for yourself. But then also we can use other resources. Like if I could think, what would I say to a friend? Can I hear myself saying what I would say to a good friend in a difficult moment? Let me hear my voice and my tone and even my posture and how patient I am with a good friend. Yeah. And then could I just try that on with myself?
Right. You
could
don't
I
believe it
as
yet.
They say, even if I don't believe it, can I just make that U-turn? It's like, it's a simple U-turn. Like, could I just turn it on to myself and just try for this minute to be kind like I am to a good friend. Yeah. Right. And, or we might even, there are practices of resourcing, like what would a wise being say to me? Or the most loving person I know. Like the most loving being I've ever encountered or imagined. What would they say to me? Could I just try it on a few times? Yeah. So it does take some practice, and it can feel like a foreign language. Yeah.
Because even if you were saying those kind words to a friend, you likely would be reassuring, even if you didn't know it was going to work out. So you don't necessarily have to believe it to be able to offer that.
That's right. You would try no matter what, even if it's not going to help them or help them, you're just going to give it your best effort. Right. You're going to, and what we're doing there, that's a really important clarification, which is we're really just coming back to our intention for kindness. When we say nice things to friends when they're struggling, when we're compassionate, we're just reconnecting to an intention for kindness, whether it works or not. And that's all we need to do inwardly too, is we keep coming back to a center of intention for kindness. Like, wow, right now, just may I be kind to myself, or may I start to be kind to myself? Can I just
can I receive my own kindness?
Yeah. Or I often add the words, just in this moment, can I be kind? Just right now. I don't have
to do it forever. That feels daunting.
Yeah. even just for a minute or for a moment, right? Yeah.
And it's hard too, because if we're really flooded by our emotions, that intention's really hard to access. Yes. So then I think it's really important to remember, okay, if I just name the emotion, that inherently is going to calm the brain, that allow those tools to be accessible once again.
So we add some other, because sometimes if we're just in our head, we're stuck in our head, and it's really hard to manage difficult emotions by analyzing or thinking conceptually, oh, I can just try and be nice to me. So oftentimes it's helpful to come into the body. We can use soothing touch, like hands on the heart for some people, or a kind of self-embrace. And we can also use just other means by then just thinking about it. How do I recenter? Sometimes I use the breath, the nourishing breath. Or I'll do like 3 deep clearing breaths, like just right now. Oh, I can just feel it in my body. I begin to shift already. And we know that those deeper breaths already activate the parasympathetic nervous system to calm. So I'm already creating some room for myself to be in a way that feels more livable. Right? Yeah. So embodied practice is also part of mindfulness and self-compassion, right? That we make it embodied. And this helps us to shift.
So speak more to that. How have you been bringing more embodiment into this work? And what are some ways that people can begin to do that, even if they're not being guided in that?
Well, this is a great question. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to do embodiment practices, like yoga, dance. I dance twice a week, 5 rhythms dance, or the 360 emergence. And this has been an incredible part of my weekly practice. It's like it's in some way my vacation in some way, because I get to move to music, which I love. I get to travel with whatever I'm feeling, and I also get to release. So a lot of movement in the body helps us to not only connect to how we are, but to move energy and to move emotion. So it could be yoga, it could be dance, it could be walking and jogging, and of course all forms of exercise that includes some mind-body connection. Like I'm noticing how Qigong is really beautiful in Tai Chi also. So that's helpful. And there are many, many resources available online now, like tons of free resources that you can go to. But also this idea that right now I can connect to myself through, that practice of soothing touch to become aware. Even, a lot of times we do this unconsciously. We connect to our bodies as a way of resetting our attention. We're actually shifting our attention into the body to also discover how we are and to create some soothing and softening where we might be tense. And this helps us to be more accepting of moments. I do this all the time.
So a couple of things I want to add to what you're saying is I once interviewed a woman who does mindful yoga, and she was really big into the self-embrace because we know how our brain produces the positive, good feeling hormones when we're being held. I mean, we know from theories of attachment and touch just how important that physical touch is. And the brain doesn't know the difference by someone else's arms around you or your own arms around yourself. And so what a beautiful gift to just hug yourself and let your brain release the positive, good feeling hormones that are going to boost your mood and your energy. So I love some of those postures of self-compassion. I think are really powerful, especially when we notice if we're angry, depressed, or sad, how physically our posture is embodied that. So just to even sit with more integrity or more wakefulness in our physical body, I think is powerful. And the other thing that the energy shifts emotions is just, it's beautiful. I once attended, a Tony Robbins, not a full Tony Robbins event, but a small portion of one. And he gets up, everyone moving and shaking and wiggling and dancing and being silly and looking ridiculous, because it's that reminder of any emotion that is in your body that is preventing you from moving forward in whatever capacity, you need to physically move it.
That's right. I mean, I am such a big believer in that. My background is as a physical therapist also. And I've been athletic most of my life and really into nature. So I think moving in nature particularly is helpful, or connecting in nature, but all of this movement to shift is just mandatory, no doubt. Yeah. So all of the clients I work with, if they're not regularly moving, that's part of what we're working with. And they're not only like these soothing touch experiences doing just sitting down, but in standing and in Qigong work, in all of this movement, we can even embody compassion practices. So this would be a compassion practice. Even this kind of, I was on a Zoom call with friends and colleagues, and we've done this kind of like, I'm here to hug you, but even like notice just like, what does it feel like to see someone hugging themselves? What does that feel like? Like, oh, you know what, our body actually releases opiates and oxytocin when we're feeling connected in a safe way. So that touch, it's really, really important to shift our own physiology. And we think of this like, when you think of our physiological response in self-compassion work, we're activating the caregiving system. As opposed to the threat defense system inside of our body when we're being critical, when we're under stress. We've activated a stress cycle. So how do we counteract that? We literally activate this caregiving system.
I love naming it like that. Yeah, I love naming it like that. And, especially when we come to recognize that so many of our patterns are like early designs of the brain gone wrong.
Yes.
That when it was first designed, it had its really good intention to keep us safe and to keep us alive, and yet not so functional for our everyday use, and not something that we need to like rely on. So when we can recognize, that fight, flight, freeze response is on overdrive almost all the time, coming from a foundation that really kept us alive when we were cavemen, and now it's gone awry of the mere thought that can produce anxiety and produce that stress response.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you're talking about, like I've been practicing in the last few weeks since we went into coronavirus lockdown. I've been practicing being very careful about how much exposure I have to the news. Because imagine that every time I look at a social media post that is stressful, or every time, or is newsworthy but still stressful, how many times I watch the news, every time I connect to that, it triggers adrenaline again.
Yes.
So it literally triggers fight, flight, or freeze. And then now I'm like, how am I dealing with all of this sympathetic stress over like hyperdrive? And of course, that means that my negativity bias, my focus on what's wrong,
Yes.
is just stronger and stronger and stronger. So right now, through stressful periods like of this time and through uncertain times, we need to try to bring that focus back again and again, much more intentionally, to
Yes.
also to like, what's positive? Like today, can I pick 3 moments of savoring, for example? And since I'm a nature lover, I typically will go on a sense and savor walk outside and look for 3 pleasurable things. Like one thing visual that's pleasurable, oh, beautiful trees or the blue sky.
Yeah.
One thing that sounds beautiful, a songbird or the sound of the breeze. And then maybe one thing that I can touch that's like beautiful. And so whatever we can do to keep feeding the that sense of nourishment, of pleasure, of calm, we're trying to balance that negative, like right now, that heavy weight of the negativity bias, which in periods like this are just on overdrive.
Well, and you bring up a really, really helpful, very practical tip. And it's something that I've been saying too, if you need a social distance from the news.
Totally. Oh my God.
Because we recognize that perhaps too much information is not a good thing, and it's not serving us, and it's creating more of this negative energy or angst or, anxious energy or increased sadness or anger or fear or depression, all of it.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting we need to deny that it's existing, but have the awareness of when it's too much, and have the awareness of how it's affecting you, and have the wisdom to make a conscious choice in your habits around it.
Exactly. So, and we use mindfulness for that too. Like when this first started, I watched a lot of news, partly because I work with healthcare professionals and I work with entrepreneurs, and how is it affecting all of these groups? I've got to know because I work with them. So, but then how much do I have to know? Like, how much do I have to report in every day? I already know enough. So every time I turn on the news now, I ask myself, do I need to know this? Like, and how much do I need to watch? Is 10 or 15 minutes okay? And maybe I've seen enough, like I'm informed enough, and it's time to shift again. So and then I also am aware and honest, like, ooh, maybe it's exciting to hear this news, because it is exciting. Let's face it, it's hard to turn away from a car crash.
Right.
It's hard to turn away from such drama and fear and concern. It's like watching a movie, really.
Right.
So I am also aware of just like how much I might be attached to, like, ooh, let me find out what's going on dramatically now, and then go, okay, maybe this is it's just enough for me. I need a break. So really just, and knowing that you're likely going to go there, I'm sure like tonight or in a couple of days, I'm going to watch too much news. So let's just be real. Right. And then we just keep rebalancing, and we keep coming back to like, all right, I need a pause.
And I think part of that is the curiosity around why are we doing what we're doing? And if you want to, so for the news piece, I think this is a really practical piece to talk about, because it can be a very self-critical act, because then we can get stuck in the cycle of, why am I doing this, knowing I'm going to feel like shit at the end.
Oh, right.
Or or it can be a very self-compassionate act. And so for me, I've noticed I want to stay informed, but I want to do it on my terms. And the news, I can't control what they're going to show me next. So I've learned, for me to stay informed, I can look things up online, and I can make the choice to read it or not.
Yes.
And so I think recognizing, even within some of our needs right now, being curious of how can I meet the need in the way that serves me best. And to me, that's a beautifully self-compassionate approach.
I agree. I think this idea of reading your news is much more helpful. You can pick and choose and,
Yeah.
in some way titrate how much exposure you're getting.
Right.
And then just check in with yourself. Like, all right, do I need to really hear the next show? Or do I need to even read further? Or do I need to go down the rabbit hole of these stories? And at the same time, of course, we want to still care. We want to know what's going on in the world. I certainly do. But it's really just think of it as like your pie. Like I've got this much energy. I've got this much, also I've got this much energy and attention. And if 80% of my attention is going into worry and the news and the stories around it and the fears around it, then I will certainly be depleted. So think about whatever is in your pie and like how much attention do I want to give this? And then what else can I do to help my life right now? Which of course, all of our lives have been thrown upside down in some way. So how do I create this new environment, working from home with the kids or not? And new ways to make money. What do I need to do with my business? Yes. What do I need to do in my relationship at home? How's it going?
Layers and layers.
Oh my God.
And when I think about self-compassion quite a bit for all of us during this time. And, we try to fix things, because we want to solve problems. And a lot of this right now isn't easily fixable. And we got to get creative. But I think a great self-compassionate reminder is to simply just say to yourself, wow, this is just really hard right now.
Exactly.
And that's it. We don't have to do anything else. Just give yourself the permission that it's okay. Yeah. That you may be struggling in your relationship. You may be sick of your partner. You may be, impatient with your kids. You may be on your wit's end. Can you let that be okay? That this makes sense.
Yeah, because
it's wrong with you for feeling what you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said now sounded like what a friend would say to you. Like, yeah. and you can be super honest and go like, this feels like a shitstorm. I mean, this is like, maybe my relationships are literally at their edge, right? Because for many of us, we've had to be in relationship much more than usual.
Yes.
Right? I mean, for some of us, actually, we're feeling more lonely, more disconnected. Others are feeling too connected.
Yes.
And just being super real and going, all right, today was a hard day, or, that was just really a tough morning, or it was a tough exchange I had. And this is hard. And right now I'm just going to do what I can to help myself. And maybe I'm just going to open the window and get a breath of fresh air and try to find a way to recenter, to shift. I often see these practices as the opportunity just to shift again. Like I either come back to center or I come away from what is distressing because I need a break. And that's another important thing to think about with mindfulness too. A lot of people think of mindfulness as constantly being open to what's happening. But sometimes what's happening is too much. Yeah. And we need to learn to close down a bit and know where we can turn our attention. We have a choice where we place our attention.
Right.
I can shift it to something that feels helpful. Maybe it's the breath in my body or the soles of my feet. Or I can go outside and go, you know what? Right now I need to take a walk down the street or in my garden and really just cause this sense of that I can shift myself right now, that I can even take a different perspective too, right?
And I can even turn to that glass of wine. Just do it with awareness. I mean, that to
totally.
Me, there's nothing wrong with coping mechanisms, even the ones that might be a little less skillful than others. I would just say, are you doing it with awareness?
Yes.
Because it's when we're coping in a distracted, unconscious, habitual, unskillful way, maybe that's not serving our higher intentions.
Right.
And so I think it's an important point, because to be mindful, we may not always just want to open the window and breathe. Maybe we want to just zone out on our phone.
Right.
And if you're doing it with awareness and it's serving you, then it's okay. Give yourself the permission. And then
exactly.
At the point it's not serving you anymore, say, okay, I can be done now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you and I would agree that when you do it with awareness, when you're consciously doing it, you don't need as much of it because you're
Yes.
fully present in it. When I drink a glass of wine and I'm much more aware of it, it's like that's all that's needed, is like I'm in it, I'm in the experience, I'm in the pleasure. I might notice I'm getting buzzed.
Yeah.
You know what? Whoa. Can I see what that's like? Is it too strong? How am I doing with that? If I've
Yeah.
gotten to my phone and I've been in it for 20 minutes scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or whatever, is okay, I've been present with it, and then I've noticed when I also got lost.
Yes.
And I'm not consciously aware of it anymore. And I just come back, because we're going to go into unconscious periods too.
Right.
So with all of this, and I just come back and go like, all right, this has been enough.
To me, that's one of the best ways of describing mindfulness. It's not always being aware. It's being aware when you're not aware. Or it's not always being present. It's having the awareness when you're no longer present.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love coming away from this definition that you're being fully present. We're never fully present.
You can't
So
do it.
it's just coming to awareness when you can, with that open-hearted, open-minded
Yes.
attention. And that's like the beauty of it. So it doesn't really matter what's happening in the moment. You can be present as long as you bring those attitudes, like this kind of open-minded, curious attention with what's here. And then when it's bad, when it's hard, really offering that kindness, that friendliness, that,
Yes.
that's the part we need to cultivate more of. It's where most
Natalie,
of us struggle.
You make it sound so simple, and I know it's not, but your approach is very simplified, and we don't have to make huge, big shifts to create these changes. And I so value your descriptions and the energy in which you describe it, because it feels really attainable. And I practice these things, and so I know that they are, but I also am having my own beginner's mind and listening as if I never had heard these tools before. How would I begin to relate to it? So thank you so much for your approach in describing what mindful self-compassion can look like, and in the various ways. Always such a pleasure to connect with you. So thanks again. I hope you stay healthy and stay safe and stay sane.
Oh, Jory, thank you so much. You too.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.